Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Louise and I like chatting all things about auditions. And this week we are talking about the specific practice of sight reading within your audition. Now some of you might have encountered this before and other people will be brand new to this exercise. So let me start off by saying that most people really don't like it. Except me. I love it. I really like sight reading. But before we get onto preferences, let's actually just talk about what it is. So sight reading, sometimes called cold reading, is the practice of reading out loud a bunch of words and sentences off a page that you have not seen in advance. So people sight read in their jobs when they do presentations, or in school projects when they have to present in groups, or even for things like best man speeches or father of the bride speeches. Anytime a person needs to stand up in front of a bunch of people and read words off a page, that's sight reading. There's also the equivalent from music where a musician will be playing as they are reading the musical notation for the first time. And I think that that is witchcraft. I don't know how they do it. I think it's fantastic and fascinating and I take my hat off to them each and every time because I think it's bonkers. So if that's you, I applaud you. But for actors, we're talking specifically words on a page. Now, if you're brand new to this, then you might be thinking, oh wow, this sounds quite difficult. This sounds like something that I'm not entirely experienced with and it sounds a bit scary. And that's totally fine. That's how most people initially approach sight reading. And I did as well when I first began sight reading. I was like, what is this? This is really unnatural and nerve-wracking and what am I supposed to do? And now I love it. I think it's fantastic, and most people look at me a little bit strangely because it seems to be something that everybody just accepts as being a really uncomfortable thing that happens within auditions, and it's a necessary evil and we just need to get through it as quickly as possible. Whereas I really enjoy it. I love doing auditions where I have to do sight reading as an actor. I love auditioning people and seeing how they sight read. I love doing rehearsed readings. I love doing read-throughs for plays where it's all sight read, all of that kind of stuff. I'm like, yes, I'm totally on board with that. And the reasons, for the most part, are that I don't have to expel any attention or any energy on remembering dialogue because I haven't got off book. I've got it in front of me on a piece of paper, so I'm not putting any energy or attention into trying to memorize it ahead of time or trying to remember it in the moment when I'm in the throes of an audition. All of that energy that would have been expelled doing that, I now take it and I can put it fully into listening and responding and existing creatively and imaginatively in this space. And in the end, as actors, that is what we're there to do. So I've now actually freed myself up. I've given myself more opportunity, more time, more energy to actually plow it into the thing that I'm there to do. And another reason why I love sight reading is that the audition panel know that mistakes will happen. So I'm already off the hook. If a mistake happens, then that's okay. That's totally okay because I haven't had 4 weeks worth of rehearsal. I'm not off book. I don't know what the words are. I need to find them on the page. And I'm not aiming for perfection. I mean, we need to deconstruct this idea of perfection anyway, because at no point am I saying after 4 weeks of rehearsal and a full run of a play or whatever that you should be getting to a stage of a perfect performance, because there is no such thing. The film Black Swan, as much as I absolutely love that film, I think it's beautifully shot and fantastic performances and all of that kind of stuff, the story's great, apart from the very end. So if you've not seen it, sorry, spoiler. She's a ballerina, she's constantly striving for perfection the full way through, and our teacher is kind of like, no, just let go and let it flow and rah rah rah. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. You know, eventually she's going to learn to just accept the fact that it is what it is. But no, she gets to the end, and she's like, that was perfect. That was the perfect performance. And I was like, it wasn't, it can't be. I mean, one, she fell in the first act, whatever. But two, there is no such thing. There is always something to improve upon in yourself and viewed by other people. There is always things that can be improved or changed or shifted or approached in a different way, or kind of found more curiosity or more intrigue or different layers. There's always something. So we need to get away from this idea that there is perfection somewhere within your performance. It's just not the case, and especially when it comes to sight reading, because you are going to trip over words, you are going to forget your place, you are, you know, there are so many variables and kind of plates that you need to spin in the air that mistakes will happen, and they're accepted. Because the thing is, if the audition panel wanted a perfect and flawless performance, they would have asked you to get off book, and they didn't. So there's got to be a reason why they've asked you to sight read. Which brings me on to the most important point when it comes to sight reading, is for you to ask why. Don't ask the panel direct, why did you ask me to do this? But once you become aware that you need to sight read for an audition, this is for drama school auditions and for professional auditions, ask yourself, well, why are they doing this? Why haven't they asked me to get off book? They must want to see something through sight reading as opposed to being off book. And that could be multiple things. If you take the example of professional auditions, so it'll actually be more of a rarity for screen auditions, so anything that's kind of TV or film, it will be rare that they will ask you to sight read or not be off book for your audition. Because of the medium itself, it's very much operating on the idea of the finished product. So they want to see you showing up as a complete character with very little need to evolve and rehearse and change, because with filming you don't have rehearsal time really, depending on the project, but the assumption is that you won't have any rehearsal time, so they want to see the finished product. And if you are kind of looking up and down having not learned your lines, then that's a demonstration of you not doing a finished product. So it will be less common for screen auditions to request sight reading. But for theatre auditions, they might ask you to sight read, or they might specify it like this: be familiar. So if it actually kind of says in your breakdown for your audition, be familiar with the dialogue. That means exactly that. Be familiar with it, but don't be off book with it. So you want to know the dialogue enough that you can take a cue from the sheet and bring it up and actually speak the rest of the line, but not enough that if the sheet was taken away from you, you would still have a flawless performance. Now, it might be that they ask for that because they don't want you putting all of the effort and the energy in your preparation stage into learning dialogue. They want you developing a character and bringing in ideas. They might also know that nerves hit when you get into an audition, and that the first thing that goes is usually dialogue in those situations. So to actually counteract that, encouraging you to have your script there will take those nerves away ever so slightly, because you've got a safety net. It might also be the fact that it was just a quick turnaround audition, that there wasn't actually a lot of time between giving you the audition and you actually auditioning. So they want you to use what limited time you have in developing a character and bringing in your best work without fearing that you're going to forget the lines that you only had a very small amount of time to get off book. Now, for drama school auditions, there are a fair few schools that actually give you sight reading as a particular exercise. And this is where I get a lot of my students saying it feels like a test. And I get that. I get that you feel that somebody thrusting a piece of paper with words on it in your face and saying, "Hi, can you read this out loud?" Yeah, that will feel like a test. But what I want you to see it as is not a test, but an inquiry. A lot of drama school auditionees get really nervous about thinking, well, they're going to see that I can't read very well and they're going to presume that I can't read and that I'm stupid. And quite frankly, if I wanted to know whether you could read, I'd look at your exam results. Seriously, we're under the impression that you can read and digest information and speak it all back to us. We're under that impression, don't worry about that. And also, the ability for you to read quickly or accurately is not a demonstration of intelligence. It's not. Especially in the creative sphere, and especially the fact that there is such a large percentage of people going into drama schools and going into the arts who are dyslexic. So whether you can or cannot read to a particularly high level and actually kind of speak it out loud without having preparation time, that is not the be all and end all. That is not the reason why you do or do not get a place at drama school, I can assure you. What it gives the opportunity for the audition panel to see is whether they need to offer you more support if they give you a place at drama school. There's this thing called reasonable adjustment. So if you do have dyslexia or if you do have struggles around reading and reading out loud, knowing that so much of drama school training is orientated around text, then it means that they know this ahead of time and they can put support in place for you when you start the course. Okay, so if sight reading is not a test of how well you read, then what is it there to do? Good question, let me tell you. So, an audition panel want to see how you creatively, imaginatively, and impulsively bring a piece of text to life. without any preparation time. They want to see what your first instinct and your first understanding of a piece of text is. So it's something that is unfiltered, uncensored, and just something that comes up creatively in the moment. We basically want to see how your creative mind ticks. We also want to see how brave and bold you're going to be with your commitment to the text itself. And we also want to see how you deal under pressure. Yeah, sight reading is nerve-wracking. You don't know what's coming next. There's loads of things to kind of think about and bring to life in the moment. There's loads of plates spinning. So we want to see how you deal with that in the moment. So actually, that one little exercise of just getting you to read some stuff that you don't know in advance covers so many different things. So my big pieces of advice, now that you understand why sight reading is there, is to take your time. People go into auditions feeling like they owe the panel the time that has been allotted for them, which is not the case at all. If you know that your audition slot is 15-20 minutes, then take your 15-20 minutes, especially when it comes to drama school auditions, because you paid for it. You paid for those 20 minutes, so use them. So don't feel like you need to be rushed by an audition panel if they give you a piece of paper with words on it. Take your time as you go through it, because if you take your time, then it allows you to breathe. It also allows you to take in the information that you are reading accurately so that you can make a more creative choice with it. Another thing to remember is that mistakes are welcome, all right? You have the freedom to fuck up. You have the freedom to really mess up when it comes to sight reading. Because if they wanted no mistakes, they would have asked you to get off book. They can't assume that you were going to be totally perfect with a piece of text that you have never seen before. That's silly, that's bonkers. Why would they do that? And when you make a mistake, you have two choices. Either you can just plow on and style it out as if you always meant to say it like that anyway, or you can stop and calmly go back to the top of the thought or the top of the paragraph or wherever is comfortable for you, and then you fully commit to it again. You have those two choices. You don't have the choice to stop, fumble, apologize, and make yourself small because you made a mistake. And you notice this with live performances, because live performances go wrong as well, and they've had weeks of rehearsals. You know, like a teacup will fall over, somebody will forget a line or whatever. But what the audience never remember really is the actual mistake itself. They remember the recovery. They remember how things are styled out. So make sure that you're actually doing something that's going to benefit you in the moment. And another thing, you are allowed to ask to read it ahead of time. So if you're in the audition room and they're like, here, have some sight reading, all you can do is ask, hey, can I have a minute to read this over? The worst that they can say is no. And actually, if they do say no, that gives you even more information. You have more of an understanding about the why of why they are asking you to sight read. If they don't want to give you any time, they really want to see how you deal under pressure. They really want to see how you can impulsively and creatively bring something to life that you have no idea what's coming next. They want to see if you're willing to really jump into the unknown or not. But for the most part, they'll usually say, yeah, of course, take a minute. And if they do, I encourage you to turn around, walk to the other side of the room to give yourself some privacy. The worst thing that you want to be doing is facing an audition panel knowing that they're probably going to be staring at you, or at least just aware of you being there as you're trying to read something, because you're not going to be able to actually take that information in. So take yourself off to a corner and read it, and actually take a full minute to read it. And when you read it for sense. Just read to understand what's going on. No more than that. Even if there are words that you're like, I don't understand what that word is, I don't know what that means, or I don't even know how to pronounce that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because if they wanted you to get everything perfect, they would have given you that in advance, and they would have given you a thesaurus and a bloody dictionary and 3 weeks to do it. And they haven't. So if you don't know what that word is, that's okay, because they're going to figure that out in 4 weeks worth of rehearsals. Don't worry. Read it for sense. Read it for the story. Understand what's going on, and then fully commit to it. And that brings me on to the next bit. Commit. Commit to what you are doing. The last thing people want to see is you just reading. That's not what we do as actors. We have to bring it to life. It's not a reading exercise, so don't just read something. How boring. You don't have to commit to something or not commit to it at all. We want to see you being brave and bold in your commitment to your interpretation creatively of the work that is in front of you. And the last thing is use your time wisely. If they give you a week or 2 weeks or a day or whatever in advance for you to be able to sight read, then use that time wisely. Break the piece down, figure it out, mark it up. Know what you're doing ahead of time. But the one thing that you don't do is try and get off book. It's not what they're asking for. Prepare it, research it. Even if they give you half an hour, then that's half an hour's worth of you figuring out what the story is, circling a few words that you might not understand and Googling them. All of that kind of stuff is really going to put you further forward in kind of taking those nerves away, in you approaching the work with freedom and having proper creative commitment to the work. Now, if you think that you are totally at sea when it comes to sight reading, then you're in luck. I am going to be running a sight reading workshop very, very soon, and all of the information will be on my Instagram and on my website. So there is it's a kind of TBC date at the moment, but I will be running a Zoom workshop on sight reading. So if it's something that you kind of think, okay, I'm approaching audition season for drama schools and I really want to get good at that, or if you're a professional and you feel like you're a little bit kind of rusty on the old sight reading thing, then this workshop is for you. So all you need to do is go to the website and sign up to the newsletter. Once you've signed up to the newsletter, you will be the first to find out when the workshop will be running, and there will be a discount for anybody who is actually subscribed to the email list. So it will be well worth doing that ahead of time. So signing up to the newsletter on lmccoach.com. and be the first to find out when that workshop is running. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found it useful, and if you did, then just make sure that you click like and that you subscribe to the channel, and that you can put any comments or questions below and I will be more than happy to answer you. But until next time, thank you so much and I'll see you then. Bye.